So the Kuntres Inyona Shel Hachassidus. So when again Inyona Shel Hachassidus. והחידוש שבאכל כתר שנסגר לפניה נאמרו ביורים רבים. This is the דבר פשוט that we're dealing with when again Inyona Shel Hachassidus. That's the דבר פשוט that Hachassidus a chelik of Torah. Chelik of Torah, so Chachmas Yersein Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not we don't have to explain that the Rebbe is not coming to explain over that Torah Hachassidus is part of Yiddishkeit. It's a part of Torah. Chachmas Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's Vedish. The Shaila is every chelik in Torah has a certain matara, has sein inyan. Learn any din, you're learning Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch Avad is Chachmas Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But what's Inyona of Shulchan Aruch? To lahir sa'adam misamayis asher yasam. And you have other chalakim in Torah, Chveis Gemara, that Inyona is not lahir misamayis asher yasam, let's say, but it's to know the seichel and the shakavatari of the dinim, to know the different days, to know the different every inyan. Now there is a medrash, the chelik of Torah, but it has its matara. It's inyan lalamid you should know das Gdulas Hashem from Agada. Every chelik in Torah, besides for the general inyan that Torah is seichel alikis, Chachmas Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but every inyan in Torah has its function. Was will uftan by a mention? What's its purpose? So the shaila is what's Inyona Shel Hachassidus. And the son of Inyona Shel Hachassidus, it has to be a chiddush. Achal katesh ngal lefaneh. Hen sagen the Hachassidus is an inyan which that inyan already exists in other chelik Torah. What's after Hachassidus have them? So the Torah Shulchan Aruch to bring in a naya zach. We didn't have halachas b'tamein. So we have to understand what's Inyona Shel Hachassidus and how this inyan doesn't exist in the chalkei Torah which was nizgala before Torah Hachassidus. So nemru biurim rabim umehem. So the first of the means is vanish al Bashem Tov haya elam matzav shel alfus va the gila Bashem Tov teres Hachassidus nis'erer ha'elam misalfusay. So that state is brought from Pirchas Karditzer, I think, that b'shas bizman al Bashem Tov, so the elam was yidnim were namatzav of his alfus. The world was namatzav of his alfus. What's the parshas means? The musik of his alfus. So al derech when you get to a person that azeh, when a person's awake or alert, regular, so the nefesh melubish beguf, so a person functions. But there's a dugmas when a person sleeps, so his nefesh is more mesulik from the guf. So then he can't function normally. The body exists, and the nefesh also exists, but the nefesh doesn't exist in a way that the body is able to access the nefesh. The nefesh is not awake and conscious in the guf. So with that klal b'shas, a person regularly sleeps. You don't have to use special emtzaim in order to wake him up. You just get him a bisla shakol. There's different levels of sleep. His alpha is a very deep level of siluk hanefesh v'naguf. It's not like misa, but it's a much deeper dark and shina where the nefesh is totally removed from the guf. And in order to bring back the nefesh, you need to have a special kayach, a special samei marpe, a special strong reach, or call his name, in order to me'er the nefesh and should be nizgala again in the guf. So the world is created in a way, or that I was speaking in the Kuntres when they get to the world, or that when they get to yid. So in a way that there's the gufa elam, there's the mitzias of and there's a lukus, which is the va'atam achayas kum. The Eibusher is the makar achayas of the whole world. And the fnei zman abal shem tiv, so the world was in a state that it was nirga shel lukusen welt, or there was nirga shel lukusen yid. The yid was connected to his makar. The dogmas like a person is awake, that the nefesh is meir and misgale in the guf. So the nefesh was awake. Avadi needed then Torah mitzvahs also. A person could be sleeping. Even Mizman, before this Gilei Abba Shem Tov, there was manim that a person could not necessarily be connected to be margish elikus. So that's after uvekin. For that, the regular nigla deraisa was enough in order to wake up a year that he should be connected to his makar achayis. Masha'inkin Mizman Abba Shem Tov, and from that zman until now, the world is in a state. I mean, said atzmai the cheshach is misgaber. So the world is in a state that. It's kaviyachah the siluk of the chayis el kifrim velt is in a way it's bedugmas is alphas that the chayis is removed legamri from the mitzias olam, from the mitzias of a yid. So in order for a yid to have a bimargesh a kesher to the Eibusher and to have a chayis and Torah mitzvahs v'yaz dafshe zayin, you need a special keach, which that's the inyan of the Baal Shem Tov Torah Hachassidus. So that's has that keach eliki to me'erer to megale to mekasher a yid with his makar, even when a person is in a state that the makar is very removed from him. There's a lamis v'steidim in velt, so the regular kayach haliki which exists in other chalkei Torah are not bekayach to connect the yid back that he should be margish elikus. So according to this beer, the way the beer is brought is not that the Baal Shem Tov came with Torah Hachassidus and megala new inyan. The ultimate purpose is always that it is always the purpose that you should have a yitzal zayin alevet kiyid, avos Hashem and yiras Hashem, and to be connected to the Eibusher. Sachakol today, in order for the yid to be connected to the Eibusher, you need to have, since the matzav is that there's a matzav of his alphas. The chayis eliki is the ganzen b'havdala v'richuk from Welt. Bedugmas like Adam HaMesalef. So merely you have to have a special keach. Chassidus, which is connected to a special, that was not going into the Biyurim, but you need Chassidus in order to be Ma'erer, a Yid, as al sein nicht verschlafen, should be connected to the market, to be conscious of his market. Das is der erste Biyur. The zweite Sach steht, that Chassid hu she'esel of Nimi Shiur Sadin, Kamaimer Nazal Seif from Chassid, afagav shemazikli. The Gemara brings, this is the Alter Rebbe said, and as the Alter Rebbe was in Hachassidus, and so on. So the Alter Rebbe said that the Gemara Mefaresh is that Chassid is hu she'esel of Nimi Shiur Sadin. So the Dugma that brings here, Ukamayim Razal Seif from Chassid, Afika Shemazikli. That's basically that when you get to the Tziparnaim, so the Gemara says that Tziparnaim could be mazik, we get him a hezek to Nishim Muberes, so the halacha is that a Rasha just leaves them just where it is, but a tzaddik is kevran. Masha'ik a chassid is serfan. So the serfan itself is already a inyan which is not the tzaddik, which does apit tzedek or mishpat apimi desadin, so he's kevran. And a chassid is serif. So before the Rebbe adds this, the Rebbe adds from Taisis, Avakav Shemazikli. But even before then, serf and chassid, Pashas HaGemara, why is it inyan l'frim mishur sadin? Because apidin, you only have to be b'derech klal, b'shas you bury the tziparnaim, so b'derech haragul, you don't have to be chayshish. It's a chashash rechaika that maybe it's gonna it says there in the Gemara that there's the 312 that the machresha will be megalit.
No, but I'm assuming that's what you're going to say.
But when something is covered, so you don't have to be, someone buries it, you don't have to be chayshish that if you just put a kiss, it's not kavram to begin with. But if you're just going to put a cover, so it's not going to be if you're going to bury it, even though with derech klal, no one's going to go and dig the hole. So a pidin, in order to bavar and a hezek to someone else, you don't have to do something. You do the regular shmira, like a regular din when you get to nezikin. You have to do the regular shmira reuya. You don't have to be watched. You don't have to do a shmira to secure the earth in the shayr, that it should be no chashasha ba'ilam, that it should be able to break down the door. You have to have a dalas ha'emet of fnei ruach mitzuyah. As Kenzen, there's going to be a hurricane, and then the dalas is not going to be enough. But you don't a pidin. You're not mechuyev to make a shmira that's going to bavarn from a ruach built to mitzuyah. So there is a here. There are klabashas your kaver the tziparnaim is shem avarnt the problem. There's a chashash, so a tzaddik serfan because he's even chayshish for a chashash rechaika that maybe the chfira is going to get uncovered. But mainly serfan. But the Rebbe is amazing even more. They bring some tastes there. The b'shas someone is saying of a chedek of his guf, even the tziparnaim, it causes a certain hezek to the person. So that's the fnei mishur sadin. A person is not mechuyev to be bavarn a hezek to someone else on the expense of himself getting a hezek. So in the case here, so achas that someone does a fnei mishur sadin that he's going to bavarn as a tzveitze yiz on the kriegen ken hezek, even at the expense of himself getting kriegen a hezek. Because Kenzen the andere Inyona fnei mishur sadin, you have that also in Pirkei Avos before Chassidus, where this nekuda of going the fnei mishur sadin even on the expense of a hezek, thus is the uftu from Chassidus of the Chassidus. That means that the Yid should serve the Eibishter without being meschashev at all with himself, even at the expense of himself getting a hezek. That's that type of Eidas Hashem, even in the extent of him getting a hezek. That's the uftu of Chassidus. Fidiger brings a dugma over there. There was a sign up here the Likutei Diburim. Who it does? The Likutei Diburim. You see in R5. The mice up there with the Baisel Kamler. That he said that the Mashiach is going to say by Fabrein, the Mashiach is going to come. They're going to take Eisel on. They're going to say that this Eisel, this little creature at Gedavint and Golerent. So he was Adam Gadol, and the fact that he was Mezazol on himself, Barabim, that's inyan that Apidin hat nicht gedarf sein, and it's inyan which was an inyan of Shlila. Apidin. When a person has to take care of his own, as I yid, v'Rabbi Zekamler, has to take care of his being mizazal on himself and being mashpil himself, that he had to do b'chadr chadarim, not apidin. He shouldn't have done the barabim. It was in of hezek, but he did it in order for other chassidim to learn from him. But upon that's the nekuda is that a chas l'fnei mishur sadin is that his avez Hashem is na'ifin even to the extent of himself losing out of it. Das ist a zweite Sache. Yeah, is just that why they brings here the Afikav Shemazik, the taste is because the Etzim of Fnei Shasdin, you have that in Nigla also, but not the Fnei Shasdin for the sake of a person getting to a higher shleimus. That's the Fnei Shasdin. Shasdin is one in Achassidus doing Fnei Shasdin to get a higher level of the Bitter Amidus. But here it's Afikav Shemazik, even where he's not going to get a gain of it for the sake of another yid, for the sake of the Eibishter, even though he himself is not going to gain anything out of it. Yeah, that's the second Inyan. which was, das ist der Matorah von Chassidus. A dritte Sach,
But if it's entices, that means that it existed already before Chassidus.
good, in that Inyan, not as a Kavaf, not as a Seder Achaim. His fact Akasha, I remember the Prat Advarim there, but it's not. Yeah. Gimel, Mailas Hachassidus, Hu Shakeches Ativim Nasim Keches Elikim. Ufto Hachassidus says that the Keches Ativim, the regular Keches that a person has, Ze Alein Verin Getliche Keches. That's a whole new Inyan which we don't have before altogether. Inyan Esem of Firmishas than you have earlier. You have the extent and that it should be a Derech HaChaim, that was the Chadash Hachassidus. This is a whole new type of Inyan. The Mailas Hachassidus Hu Shakeches Keches Elikim. K'mayim Rabbeinu Azak Amalatani v'Shulchan Aruch Kol Inyan Hachasidusu l'shanis Teva Mideisav. Leirak l'shanis Mideisav Ativim Elagam Teva Mideisav. Mideisav Ativim means that's even you have a bit of midis that a person has nishkin guten midis. Iyar Pera Adam Yivalid, the mensch wird geboren a wilder Zach. So every person has the Avedav to be Mizachich Mideisav Ativim. Every person is born with negative things also. So that he has to fix. That's not a Ufta Chassidus. The Ufta Chassidus is to change the very nature of his midis. Means the nature itself, not only the bad middas that are born naturally. The nature of his middas means the fact that a person that he shouldn't serve Hashem based on his nature. He should serve Hashem based on what the emes is mechayiv. That's the shanis teva mideisav. You could have aves Hashem, but teva the apid nigla says apid pashas advarim. A person has but teva he has the midah of ava. So what his aveda is to take away the negative things that his midas ava has. Instead of using it as midas ava to avas elam hazeh, so he has to channel it to avas Hashem. But not that the nature of his midas. Let's see, the nature, the reason why he beteva, that's his nature. His nature is to like things. And the apipashas of tikkun midas is that you shouldn't. That what should you like? You should avas Hashem and not have avas elam hazeh. Take away the dvarim shlili which midas ava has. The ufta Chassidus is that a person should have avas Hashem because apia emes, because the Eibishot gehesen is only problem the Eibishot. Not because my nature is to have Ava, and I'm just channeling that Midas Ava that I have naturally towards the Eibishter. But the whole Midas Ava should be built because that's what Ratzon Aliyah is. That's Midas Ava Tiv Nasim Keches Elikim. Means the fact that you have someone, let's say that the Chassidus brings from Avram Avinu, that Ati Edaiti Kirei Elikim Ata. Till then, I can't mean that the fact that Avram Avinu had Avas Hashem, his Ava was, naturally he was Abal Ava. Naturally his Teva was to see the Teiv which exists in things and to have an ava towards those things. Elamai at masig event at Eibishter's teiv. So his natural midas ava at the head that the only real good is the Eibishter. So his natural midas ava was focused towards the Eibishter. But at the end of the day, the fact that he was Eivas Hashem, that midah was a natural midah. Ash'inkin when he did a ma'is of la'alakit esisuk b'nai to take Yitzchak Mizbeach, mention was not midas ava. And his midas ava is a regular midah tivis of ava. It's heipach teva that he should go be makriv. That's nachzorius to be makriv b'nei agav Mizbeach. So that was Megada. The fact that it Avas Hashem is because the emes is mechayev to have Avas Hashem, because the Eibush is Amisur Zach which demands to have Ava. And Avram Avinu's system is built leit vider emes is mechayev. That's kirei lekemati. Even as Ava was mivusas on the fact that he's a Yerushalayim. So that's the ufto Chassidus, that the person not only to take away the Inyonim shliliyim which exists in the midas, but that is very teva shouldn't be the factor in the Avos Hashem. Because Avos Hashem shouldn't be based on that his nature is. That his attitude is kach v'kach. Elamai, where is his nature channeled towards the Eibishter? But his whole mitzvah should be built according to the way that Ratzon Aliyah is. His very teva shouldn't be a menei master. The chatchila is other gebeit vern, his Avos Hashem, based on the Ratzon Aliyah is. That's the kecha that Chassidus gives. Yeah. That's an achazach. And the Rebbe brings a fourth inyan. I think this is already that's the Vusta Zach. The Torah Hachassidus Chitsha Asher Kol Echad VeEchad Gam Bi She'en Li Neshama Gveh VeGam Li Zichres Atzmi. Every single yid means what was before the Baal Shem Tov, that Dafki had to have or Neshama Gveh, or someone that Chatchila was in order to have a Asag and a Lukus. So Lukus is Hecher from Mitzias. So Lukus is the Tachas Apshitis, is higher than Mitzias. Who is able to have a Sagas Lukus? The Misachad the Eibishter. That's only someone who has a Neshama Gveh, a Hecher Neshama. The Chatchila is not a regular person. Or he was born a regular person, but Erzach Mezachach given. Erzchuv given. And he became someone that's attuned to a higher form of reality, of a Sagas Alakus. Chassidus hat aufgetan, jeder einer, kol echad vechad, gam mishe ein le neshama gveh, oder le zichach esatzmei, yuchal haseg alakus, jeder einer can have a sag in alakus. Wie hat das Chassidus getan? כידי זה שתרס Hachassidus בירה es העניינים של חלק הסייד שבתורה. It's עניינים of Kabbalah, עניינים of הליכוס. Hachassidus is mevar them. Mevar them means that Hachassidus, the עניינים כמי שהם מצד עצמם, are עניינים הליקים. They're get לך עניינים. Get לך עניינים of הליכוס. And Hachassidus is masber them and mevar them in a way that made them concepts, made them inyanim, made them ideas and seichel. Took inyanim which are be'etzim, inyanim which are mufshit from the non-inyanim of seichel. Neshama is not inyanim of seichel. The Alter Rebbe took inyanim of the neshama chilik and he gave them words. He made them concepts. He made them musagim. Once you made them, it's mevar given. And not only it's tamaz mevar given, but kirvasim ala seichel b'dugmais, you could have seichel but a seichel mufshit. That's the fact that it's in seichel is already a chiddush, but it could be a seichel mufshit. But Alter Rebbe is mevar given with musagim, with dugmais and mishalim, keichas tchunas hanefesh. But mevar given Inyanim elikos through using musagim concepts of Welt. So the Vemeilim Epsari Achzolikas. So jeder einer kann das verstehen. Nicht nafshar es kol echad leechad ha'asik am chilik zeh shebeteir. It's not only matzim mevar given in seichel, but matzim mevar given in azam esert veg that they use the gmayis and mishalim, so brought down the concepts of Chassidus in a way that through mishalim and the gmayis from the world that a person experiences. Keichas hanefesh, inyanim of Welt. So if you bring the Gemais from things that the person experiences, can yeder einer es verstehen. And not only understand the Basechel Shabnafshi Elikis, Elegam Basechel Shabnafshi Asichlas, Ad Basechel Shabnafshi Bahamis. They brought the Gemais, this is Mipsari Echzelika. The Chassidus brought the Gemais also from Inyonim Pashtin Gashmi Sa'ila. So mainly even any Seichel, not necessarily a Seichel, a Psaidel Seichel. Any Seichel can understand Karav Asag in Elikus. That's the fourth thing that Rebbe brings. The four Biurim. Rebbe says Biurim, and he brings four Biurim. We'll see later that Rebbe brings a specially in these four Biurim. But that's Lechatchili just brings these four Biurim. Oh, so yeah, I'm not saying any alumnus, any Diyukim. I'm just saying Stamazay that in the Seder Advarim, the first beer that Rebbe brings from the Baal Shem Tov, so the Inyan wasn't to be mechadish, it's a new Inyan. The etzim Inyan that a Yid should be connected to his makir. And Avos Hashem Yir Hashem doesn't nishken chiddush. The reason why this Gaza Chiddush was to give a problem, because there was a lames vesterim. So the kesher to Lakus they were able to access Chavis before the Baal Shem Tov, you're not able to access today without Chassidus. So at the end of the day, Chassidus didn't come to bring a new element and a new dargan of Avos Hashem. It's just Mizal Kenet Sukkam into the original thing. According to the second beer, already Chassidus is a higher inyan, but the etzim in the Mishra said didn't exist before also. But Chassidus made it a kav, and it was that should be a inyan that every yid should have a shaykhis to. Made it a Seder and Aveda. And the third Inyan is already a new Inyan. That's the Inyan that the Teva Keiches should be Iber gemacht, that a person's very nature shouldn't be a factor in Avedas Hashem. As that Inyan Monsach, you have to love him. That's a person has but Teva Midas Ava, and that Midas Ava he has to use towards the Eibishter. There's no Inyan that Midas Ava shouldn't be based on your nature. It should be because the Emes is Azimachai. As a certain Inyan, that a person should, that his teva shouldn't be involved, it should be all mitzad the emes of alakus. So that's not, that's the inyan from Chassidus. But the etzem inyan of bir amidus, of a person changing himself, that etzem inyan you have, that's chelik and Torah. That's even before Chassidus. The fourth inyan, yeder is l'haban asag and alakus. That's a new inyan that the Bechlal didn't. Was nicht da früher. Yeah, das kann sein.
Das Lekevicha was not a real...
Das Lekevicha, you know that there's a Machlekes Yeshenim about it. It's not as a Pashat. But the Das Lekevicha means to have Yidiyah in Alakus. A lot of Yeshenim, that there is a mitzvah to have Emunah. Who said you have to have Yidiyah? The whole inyan that you have to be Yidiyah, no, the Da, Melosh, and Havana, Vasaga, that's an Uftu. The Rabbeinu Bechaya, Zaktazeh. But even him doesn't necessarily mean Yidiyas Mizalhaban Asag and Alakus. It's more the way he brings it there is to have Rayas Mizalhaban. It's not this in of Asagas Alakus. The way the Chelik Asay, the Inyona of Ein Seif should be Havana of Asag, not just know the Eibush created the world. And that's not Inyona of Asagas Alakus, to know that the Eibush there is perfect. These are more, they're speaking about a deeper Musik of Asagas Alakus. It does bring to the Gmais.
Says the first doctor is only about says Sakodas. The South says Daf.
Only, but you see the rest is Daf Chassidus.
I don't know if the rest, or maybe the last one.
Okay, we'll see later. There brings the Baal Shem Tov, the Yachs, the Baal Shem Tov, and the Alter Rebbe. Yeah, this is the whole Kuntres. Kabbalah and Chassidus was into the Zach. That's then. Good. So the Rebbe brings it. Moving to Pashat Gedol Kamon. So the Rebbe brings Kama Biyurim. Then he said, moving to Pashat Gedol Kamon means Let's move on, like as will be explained from different points that we see that it's pashut, that it's a davar pashut. Asheteres Hachassidus in nekuda achash inem mekaves mishpratim shenim. It's not there's a bunch of needs. The world was based alphas. Was one thing that was needed, and then epis al trebet gewalt reinbringen alle Eden lefnim mishor sedin. Another Inyan that was important. A third Inyan asagas alakus. And a fourth Inyan teva mideisav. Happens to be both. All these Inyanim are they're separate points. Each one is a separate point in itself, and they're all epis. And there's no connection between one point and the other one. And punkt, they're just randomly all together. Moving a pasha that's nishtazeh, but Teres Hachassidus is one nekuda. The Rebbe brings further that it's moving a pasha. The Rebbe is going to bring later a hechler, but not a pasha sadvarim. It's not like randomly Hachassidus here is being me'erev from his alpha. This is all biyurim that are brought. What's the purpose of Hachassidus? And there's biyurim which have no connection one with the other. There's alamis v'stadium, the chassid of mishor sedin. There's no connection between these two things. That the world is there's his alpha, some davos in me'erev zayin. And another Inyan, there should be the Fnei Mishor Sadin for some reason. There's no connection between these 2 points. So, stam randomly, Teres Hachassidus hatten sich die zwei Sachen. The Havana Pshuta is that there's a certain nekuda, a certain main function that Hachassidus came. As a result of that, you have these Inyan. So, nekuda achas. She'ena merkeves, it's not just as a Torah which has different random qualities there that have no connection one quality with the other one. Mishpatim shein. There is going to bring later a deeper hechel to that. Kivan shekol ha'malach shenemer biyurim hanal over 8 biyurim. They're ma'ila shein is saying verschiedene Sachen. We don't see any. So we don't see what's the nekuda ma'achedes called ma'ila shein. We see verschiedene Sachen, which these verschiedene Sachen in that can't be what the mehusa inin is. What the Baal Shem Tov came with his galus Teres Hachassidus can't be the mehusa inin. So hari muchrach shemaas elu inin magdiris and mamatzis is mehusa Teres Hachassidus. Yeah, that's a chiddush. I mean, all the lashenis, the way these biyurim are said, is that imsat gefragt der Alter Rebbe or someone asked, what's the purpose of Chassidus? Hat man geantwortet, this is the Inyan of Chassidus. Rebbe said, this is the Inyan of Chassidus. So does in their sicher steht that that's the Inyan of Chassidus, and at zweiter sicher steht that that's the Inyan of Chassidus. So it's, and there's no connection between the 2 biyurim. So that means that they didn't. These. Not verstehen what's the pshat in these biyurim that were given and what the purpose of Chassidus is, but it's a davar pasha that nicht in them can bastehen. These don't bring out b'shleimus what's the mahus of Chassidus. Mematzis means doesn't. You say it doesn't. How do you say mematzis? Doesn't capture. Doesn't. Segitish tareis in ganzen. You're saying you could someone speaking about something, but he doesn't feel like he fully brought out the full scope of the Inyan. There's a better word, which was in the modern Hebrew. If someone says you had a yeshiva experience, someone learned in 770, says he didn't maximize the experience. Lo mitzah. So you use lashon that he wasn't mimatzah his time.
He wasn't squeezing.
Yeah, but like fully based arbet in the meaning. That's that word. There's a better word. There's a translation of Kuntres, no? Huh? On this word?
No.
But isn't there a translation?
There's a translation.
Chassidic heritage, no? They put a translation. Can't say that to Mevar Zayn. You can use your machine, L'Shem Kedusha. So what's in the Mehusa? So there is like this. Not only that these biyurim don't bring out the Mehusa Inyan. It's not a. Yeah. Not. It doesn't mean that a Bachush Rabban. I'm just saying the. But we're saying like so. The Kuntres says so. It's not the pshat that the verschiedene miles was mizogda is. It's not that we're going to. So the Rebbe adds here. We're not going to look for now for another mile. You just mentioned 4 miles. We must find another one that's going to be the Kuntres. But the Rebbe says more. Hari muchrech shemailes elu. The MS is what's the nekudas Hachassidus is not a different type of Inyan. You have Inyanim pratim mugdarim capture. Okay, I mentioned that word.
Yeah.
Seder. I was mechaber, so I didn't see the translation. Is that the first word that was mentioned? No. Okay, good.
Right, define and capture.
Seder. Oh, define that's better. Yeah, define. Good. Akoponim. So the nekudas advarim is that there's different miles. There is Inyanim which are Inyanim pratis dikina. Moshe Shchonarach. Shchonarach you can say has a distinct concrete function. A davar mugbal. Inyana is a person has to know how to. There's mitzvahs and wissen was getan. What time this was daven shachas. What time mincha. What time these are Inyanim. There's a certain mechuven what Shchonarach is. Was me mektan, was me tarnishtan. Every Inyan has a Inyan mugder. What its Inyan is to מה שכן, מהוסה של החסידס היא נקודה עצמס המופשטת מעניין הפרטי. The nekuda of Chassidus is a nekuda which is not a davar prati. Means not a defined type of Indian. A different type of mohos. We're going to have to explain what it is. But the Rebbe is saying here, it's not a defined type of Indian. It's a mohos. A nekuda asmis means a nekuda which is beyond a limited type of definition. A mohos mufshit from prat. An Indian which is ein seif. Not, we don't mean ein seif that it's bleak vol. That's not the point of it here. It's not a specific type of Indian. It's beyond that. So nekuda atzvus hamufshetes minyan pratim. Da verstehen what this means. We're going to have to see later in the nekuda Rebbe is going to explain. Suppose the alle biyurim which I mentioned before, mitzad nekudasa atzvus, mitzad the mohus of what Chassidus is, that it's not a mohus pratis. It's not a davar prati. It's a general type of Indian. It's more of a core. What I'm saying is, we have just an example, just bring out the point. You have the bedigate to the person, so you have different keches and pratim that a person has. There's a hand, a foot, and then there is the kolos hanefesh, the core itself, not the different aspects that the nefesh contains within itself. The nefesh has a kechaseichel, and there's avid, there's yira. Then there is the core essence that's not which contains all these pratim. The mahos achayis itself, the mahos adam itself, is not a certain specific koyach. That's the mahos adam itself. So there's Inyona which are atzmis, means they're core entities. They're Inyona which are be'etzem beyond the specific tzir. They're Inyonim klolim. Inyona which are connected to the mahus of Elokus, which is not a specific defined Indian milchatchila. And that's the mahus Hachassidus. That's the später. So what's an alibiyurim? Once, if you're in touch with this pnimius, which has this pnimius, which is not a davar prati, not a davar mugbal, is meir, but meile it's not mugbal. It's a nekuda asis means that it's not a davar prati. It's beyond limitation. So if such an Indian is meir, automatically it's going to change everything, and it's going to be elevated that your teva will be iber gemacht, and a person's not going to be limited to go dafka apidin. We'll see later what does that have to do with the nekuda atzvus that is going to bring a person to go lefnim or sadin. What the Rebbe is going to explain. But these are milas Inyona, which are when you're limited in a certain limitation. So then you're limited in his alphas is going to be astira to you. Din is you're going to go dafka apidin. Lefnim din won't be shaykh to you. Hasaga won't be shaykh to everyone. Hasaga won't be shaykh to everyone. You'll be limited in your nature. Masha'enkin once this pnimis, which is Nizgala through Chassidus, this mohos, which is not a mohos pratis, an undersort mohos, which is not a defined type of thing. When this Indian is mayor, when this Indian is mayor by a person, automatically hagbalas fall off in many areas in a person's life, in many Inyanim, and the hagbalas falling off results in these 4 Inyanim that I mentioned before. Means these 4 Inyanim, the reason why before Chassidus you didn't have them is because there's certain hagbalas, which was then later the beer. Once the pnimius, which the pnimius of Chassidus is, where there's a mohos which is not a limited defined mohos, when that inin is meir, falter up agbalas, and the meila there's milas, ribe milas which are nestay from this inin. Mitzen the prat. Oh, now the Rebbe first speaks in Eses HaKabbalah, was far nekuda retzela. A nekuda atzvus shel Hachassidus ki meduber leil ba maimer shebi yised maimer shel chakwa adam l'mashav shvasid. You know this sikha the Rebbe said to discuss the Toshon Chavav. So that Fabring, the Rebbe said a Maimer Pada B'Shalom. That's Miyusid on the Maimer, the Rebbe Rashab of Pada B'Shalom Tarpashayin Hey. So there the Rebbe Rashab says there that Chassidus, he doesn't use this lashon Nekuda Atzma Shel Hachassidus, but dort in state that Chassidus is Amshachas Chodesh and B'chinas Primius HaKeser. U'Lomayla Yisra Amshachas Primius Atik Mamesh B'chinas Ein Sof Shnimtze B'Radla. That's the dort in the Maimer. Yisra Kabbalah. The Chassidus is Amshacha from Primius HaKeser. Keser B'chlal is Makif. But Stamat Chitzenis Keser Arich has a Shaykhis to Ishtalshalis. Even though Keser is Makif, but there's some relation between Makif, between the Ein Seif to the Seder Ishtalshalis. Primis Keser means the Ein Seif the way it is, beyond any relation to Gvul, to Ishtalshalis. The Ein Seif the way he is, B'Primiyusa, the Amitas Ein Seif. And not in Primis Keser Gufa there's Dargis, but what's Chassidus Abshachas Pnimius Atik Mamish. It means the Ein Seif himself, which is beyond any defined definition. Not even a definition of Bligvul. The Eibusher himself. Ein Seif itself, and so that steht in the Maimer from the Rebbe Rashab and the Maimer Pada B'Shalom Ein Hey. The Hachassidus is Amshacha from Ein Sof Shenimtze B'Radla, from Ein Sof the way it is in the most removed form from Shaychas to Gvul. Ein Sof Kameshu Ba'etzem Mamish. So the Rebbe says, so that's verstandig that that's not a mistake. There is what's the core of something. Then there is once you have this core, it's going to express itself in many different qualities. So the Rebbe Rashab says, Achsidus Amshar M'chinas Ein Seif. Ein Seif it doesn't result from a davar prati. You can't say the Mahuz of Achsidus is being ma'eri people from himself. As a result of that is Ein Seif. Ein Seif doesn't result from a davar prati. Ein Seif, Ein Primis Atik, that's the Nekudas. That's the Nekudas Ha'etzem. Everything else is once you're by Yid the Shaykhas, the Primis Atik, b'meile he's going to have Ein Seif. Primis Atik is not mugbal. It's not a Mahus mugbelis. So b'shas Mahot Ein Seif, hot man alts. Everything changes. And changes that they become the way they are mitzad Ein Sof. I will see. It says, "V'inyan za'atzmi shenemar ba'mayim machriach." Asher kolam. So vazet men kofin Rebbe Rashab. The Chassidus is not an Inyan Prati. If it's Inyan Prati, then it's not Ein Sof, or it's even if it's Inyan, let's say it's Inyan of bleak vol. Not to be limited. Not to be limited is also Inyan Prati. That's not Ein Sof. That's not Pnimis Hatek Mamish, which is Ein Sof the way it is in the Atzmi is the Kamusik of Ein Sof. Before any Shaykhis to Pratim and Gvul. So, the Rebbe adds here, Inyan Za'atzmi, Shnemer Ba'mayim, Machriach, Shekol HaMala Shebechsidus. Hamvu Ordes Im Kei Meshein, Amen, Akistafus Men Kudas Za'atzmis. Why? Ki Mekima Shachsidus Yam Shachas B'chines Ein Sof. You verstand, can you move in a Pasha, Shach Ein Sof Hu Ha'atzmi. The Nekudas Ha'atzim is the Ein Sof. V'chol Shar Inyanim, Shar not Inyanim, Inyanim of Pratim, Inyanim of Gvul, Einam Elen Imtsoim U'Mesubavim Imen. Med Balzen. I was adding even more. That's let's see, there was a thing more is getouched later, so we'll leave it for the Zen später. We'll see later. We'll see this later. Yeah, there it says like this. We don't want to only say the way it's brought in this Seif is that we brought different biur and different milas on Chassidus. You say those milas don't capture the Mahusa Inyan. What's the Mahus? Ein Seif. But from this Ein Seif, how does this Ein Seif, what results from this Ein Seif? What's Mistayif? Many different qualities. We want to say is, if the Pnimis is Ein Seif, so with these Pratis Dikabiyurim, we're not going to be able to access the Pnimis. If in Hachassidus you have different milas, you say, that doesn't capture it, it's much more than that. But something is much more, but when you start going into these milas, you get a certain percentage of the Inyan. Say, Chassidus is mechadash, yeder it can verstehen Elokus. Al Treba is mevair, Inyona of Elokus and Seichel, b'meila everybody can have a sagan Elokus. Say, that doesn't bring out the full scope of what Chassidus is. But maybe it's 50%. It's a murder fun. So it's not only more than that. Being mevair Chassidus and Seichel is a davar prati. Meir de Kazach, but it's a certain distinct mile. Chassidus is Ein Seif. Chassidus is Amshara from Ein Seif, which is beyond a defined Inyan. So a defined Inyan, legabi the Inyan, the way it is Ein Seif, have no erach klal. So from these biurim pratim, that menish their gain the Mahusayin. It's not that you have to understand deeper what's the musik of Lashanis Teva Medaisev, and that's the way you're going to understand the better Havana of what Chassidus is. It's a whole different Inyan. It's a whole different Inyan. So what's all these biurim? They result. If you have Ein Sof, Hotman Alts. If you have the Eibishter, so the Eibishter create that brings a dugma weiter from Nigla Deres. If you have the Eibishter, the Eibishter create a world. When Chassidus says, "Leis zau ikra lukus mashayel nus havim menu," someone's going to want to get to know the Eibishter's Ein Sof, will be mizbenin in the flois hateva. The flois hateva, you're going to know meritic things, but legabe him it's kolachshiv. So legabe him, the more you're going to focus here, you're not going to get closer to what he is. So there's something to get to Chassidus. All these milas and milas pratis, the mahus Chassidus is the Inyan of Ein Sof. An Inyan of Ein Sof has no erech. Ein Sof legabe these milas. So the more you be misbenin in these milas, more of esn tzukum and nenter to what Chassidus is. Das is ein nekuda. Yeah, this represents an Esis Kabbalah. Chassidus is Ein Sof. And Kuntres, the Rebbe's Esis. What we know here, the Rebbe's that's negate the Hemshach Kuntres is that Chassidus is different. Is something which is connected to the core of Elokus. But we have to give it Esis. And what does Chassidus want from a person? But it's not a defined, limited idea. That's what we want to say. And once you have that nekuda, which is a nekuda which touches the pnimius inyan, the mele the whole chitzenis is different. Everything's mishtanim, but it's a klolis dikamahos. It's inyan atzmi.
So what's pshat in our 10 that they might say dafka takes into?
Oh, the besandish. There's something else. Not through the. We'll see the hemshach. The hemshach means that the inyan. We'll see the hemshach. Omer li'il when you get there Chassidus. Because the emes is that the etzem inyan the Rebbe says when you get Chassidus is b'chol chelkei Torah. The same inyan you have when you get the chol chelkei Torah. So the mele is, in other words, a certain question. So what's the fact that it says in Ein Beis lechore that Chassidus Amshachas b'chinas Ein Sof is not necessarily shailel that in Inyona Chassidus is inyan prati. That brings we see. But again, to kol Torah kula, we have the same thing. On one hand, the Torah kelel is kol aminish shleimus or milas and sois ba'elam. Torah have everything. It says that Torah is the makar abriya. The chayis, the whole chayis ha'elam, as Al says in the David's Midas Karas and Tanya, that the whole chayis ha'elam is mishtalshel from Torah. Everything is the Torah is kelel everything. It's chayim ilam azikam b'simcha mu'usher. The Torah is kelel alle gute Sachen. Nisenisle, the last mission in Pirkei Avos, Sigita mentioned alts. But hayklas and chos b'derech klal, there brings a dogma. Yeah, the etzem vart the kelas kol nishleimus milas and sois ba'el. That I'm saying. The Rebbe touches this more b'amchoshe desin. And the chalak is b'chlal b'inyan elam kotten hu adam milas hameichen and milas hameichen. There's two types of milas by a person. Milas hameichen, that his meichen v'yed after he has a richtige havana, and havana in the ultimate extent that a person is shayach is milas hameiches, is the right attitudes, right midas. And in both of these inyanim, the Torah is kailol these inyanim in the most perfect way, the hechsta way. Banhages musrius, midas tevis, hare mishpatim v'darke musar shubetera, the mesachas ovis v'chadeime im tachlis hateva emes. The ultimate good and ultimate truth. V'kol shittas hamusar shabadu b'nei adam elibam murav esein tevera emes b'sheker. There's every single shitta of how a person should live his life. Any shitta in society has good in it and also has chesrenis. They gave him ra. They gave him dvarim built. The inyanim nages musrius of how a person should live the way it is in Torah. There's no nekud of ra which are neveir for them. They're ultimate tachas hatev. Mashegin nagim musrius in velt is teva ra. Al there's the shit is what it's based on. The ideologies that are behind the shidduch hamusar, the cheseder achayim bisefaran in velt, are inyanim which they're not necessarily true. There's emes and sheker there. Every philosophy that I mentioned, machadish given, there's in the shitta there's tevera and there's emes and sheker. There is message for more. V'chal katev she'eshnu v'chal achas ma'ashittas mekelem u'b'teira. It's a Santa Order 17. This is just good. This is the Rebbe saying here. If someone's mamzi, a lot of these shittas are someone's mamzi. Lechatchila, he's mishur. He did it because he has an agenda. Instead, misat sheichad atzmi. So then versteht sich that it's not going to be emes. And it's not going to be fully taif. If the person was mamzi this shit because it fits his agenda, so it's. But I was saying, even if you have a person that was at mechadish given, was at mizbener given a shitta or chveisin to get to the bottom of how a person should live his life, and he did it l'shma without any pnias. Still, be'etzem uhusay, there's going to be things which are false in his shitta. Every nikoda, every svara a person is going to say there's going to be every shitta which is going to be created, there's going to be emes and sheker there. And there's going to be some defaults in the system that he creates. Any system of health, there's going to be defaults. The only system that's perfect is Vashtet and Torah. So the reason why? Because Kol Inyona, first of all, the Eibush created the world intentionally be'efin shel chaser. V'arel l'kim lasis l'sakin. Also, the Eibush l'shafen given an avegim is also m'sakin zeh. So nothing was born, nothing was created perfect. Ola'ach chet etzadas mu'urav me'im tevera. Tevera is mixed. Ve'ein the Rebbe adds more. Ve'ein toiv b'lei ra means even in the nekudas ha'toiv of the shitta, there's ra. Means in the Maila Shabazeh, there's a nekud of Chisar. Let's say you have a shitta that's madgish, the Maila of the group. So the group is Shel of the Prat. The Taif contains with it, the Maila is something which brings, it's not that there's in this shitta there's Taif, and then there's another aspect Ra. The Taif also causes Ra. There's, once Chetis Das happens, so in every, there's no nekud of Taif that's absolute good in Velt. Every nekud of Taif in Velt has, that Taif itself has a negative trait. There's no absolute good. There's no absolute good. Yeah, it's good to know this. Imagine, yeah. I'm saying it's in verschiedene Sachen, but this is a very good thing to know. Every mitzias that exists in the world, there's no pure milas. There's no pure teif. There's teif v'ram u'ura b'yachad. Masha'inkin the Inyona, the way they are in Torah, are the teif is a pure teif. We can trachten wegen dem. And the good which exists in everything, tak stems from Torah. Kedu asim rechak muchad mur, sheba'achas min siyesa v'sfako chamanoshim v'viu dei shidus in the zachas atera l'shidus hamediniyas, yamod the whole ma'peche, and exactly what's the right, how does Torah hold that should be that the society dort soll gebeit werden. So there's this shit, socialism, was given alle certain shittas in those days in Russia after the Tsar was. So they were discussing it, And im Eizem in Himaskemes, so they asked, V'chol echad mehem herem makir b'teira l'shitasi, V'shosholach v'schavetas muchad mur b'za'ono ha-teira l'yezu tachlas emes v'ateiv. I mean, teira is a lukus. So it's tachlas emes v'ateiv, yeshnu it's tachlas emes. It's not a limited form of good. It's the good in its fullest purity, the tachlas hateiv. So yeshnu b'kol inyanam hateiv v'chol hashitas. Tachlas hateiv. There's no, and others has negate to anhagas mus. Others have negate to chachmis. Hatera hi achachma yeser nailis mishkos kich maskum v'naschum le'inyan. It means b'tzias ha'elam mitzad atzmas chaser. That's the other pashut. Mashiach in Torah, which is connected to the Eibush, there is not chaser. The Eibush created the world in a way of lashes l'sakin, and there's tevara, and Adam Arishan made a chant out of the tevara, and it became. And everything's intertwined. But Torah is a lukus. The lukus is tachas hashleimus, tachas hateva emes. So imitz wird sagen, was besteht die Meile? Von Torah, that you have all the world's qualities, you have in Torah in the best form. You have the world of Chveis, Midas and Seichel. You say, what's the ultimate Meiles of Welt? Seichel, Midas, sagen, and was besteht die Meile von Torah, that you have these Inyonim in the most perfect state. It says, in dem besteht was Torah is, nicht in dem besteht was Torah is. Lesen wir, Shkol HaShavas Chais Be'elam, gam Yel Tzalien, tell the Kashal Torah. Omnam leis zuim husa shel Torah, saying someone he asks, what's bashtet mohusa of cheshem mishpat? Because the best way of dealing with is dispute cases that the din Torah is the way cheshem mishpat. And what's the mile of this chelik in Torah? The best way to know how to run a kitchen is yeridei. It's emes that the kashrus is going to be the best diet. Darton is going to be kashrus, let's say. Or lahavdol basar b'cholav, or all these type of things. It's going to be the best way of eating. But this is not the mahus. That's not the mahus Inyan. Listen, what's the Torah? Torah mashim yichazek amar be'erin tzapar chom lusha v'tachas hayichud. Torah is chachmas ishla kadosh baruch hu, which is one with Ein Seif. Chachmas ha-Torah is meyuchad with Ein Seif, and Ayid learned avart in Torah. He's connected to the Eibusher himself. He's connected to Ein Seif. And Ayid keeps. What's the yichas of keeping kashas? Well, that's the Ratzon Elyon, which is Ein Seif. It happens to be that it's also going to be the best diet for him, or kayetze b'zeh. But nicht in dem besteht was the mahus is. The mahus is Ein Seif. And if the mahus is Ein Seif, lechen kimen shkol ilmas im kolom mamish legabe Ein Seif baruch hu. By uns, Welt is a große Sache. And shittis and how to run dort and shittis hanhagas b'nei Adam, that's what a person, that's the biggest virtue for us. But the guy by the Eibush there, the ganze Welt is kolach shiv. Da schaffen der Welt mein yesh. The Welt is noch shiv at all. Kolach shiv lemamish legabe Ein Seif baruch hu. It's keinem legabe Torah, which is one with this Ein Seif. So legabe Torah, the best way of eating is kashrus. The best way of eating, that's kolach. That's the whole musik of eating that is not, has no value legabe elikus. Kolach mamish legabe the Eibush there. So there is legabe Torah. Ulezeis in the shabcha klal betilas chayis kol eilemis. Me'achar the lo mamish chshivi. As I'll tell you, Meir over there. What was the chet of David HaMelech? Yeah. So David HaMelech was misbeinin that the Torah is the makar achayis in the ganze Welt. Dikta kal divrei Torah, that's the ganze Welt is totally and a dikta kal of divrei Torah. So the Rebbe says, so the elements are great zach, and the whole elements are totally in one ace, one dikta kal of divrei Torah. So the David HaMelech got an einish for that, with Rebbe explains, because Torah is b'chlal shlei be'erech Welt melchatchila. The whole mitzvah element is kala legabi Torah. So he was degrading what the Indian of Torah is. And David's miris karaslu. That's Gemara and Seif. Is that bekannt with them? Because David called Torah's miris, we didn't learn it yet, but it's because David called Torah's miris, so he got punished. So what's the einish? So Rebbe explains because he was David was beinin that Elamis are Elamis, and they're all totally in dikta kasha divrei Torah. Rebbe says the gabi the truth, chumas what Torah is, which is miyuchad with Ein Seif. Welt is kala, doesn't exist. So that was a chet legabi David. So what do we see from here? Because Torah is one with Ein Seif, because miyuchad is here in Sof baruch hu, kilal is b'meile gamas kol minei maas shlem shabayil. Vayodash pasachais. The Eibush is Ein Sof. Because he's Ein Sof, so avada gewiss he can create a world. And avada gewiss is tachas ha-teiv. Teiv is a davar prati. And teiv is nothing legabe Ein Seif. Because if it's nothing legabe Ein Seif, that means Ein Seif doesn't contain it. If he's Ein Seif, so he has everything. But that doesn't mean that everything expresses what the Ein Sof is. That's Dr. Rebbe does. So the Mele, so their Inyan that so what's Dr. Anand? So what's the Rebbe saying? You come in to say what's the mahus of Chassidus? So he brought 4 biyurim. And then Dr. Rebbe, no, Dr. Rebbe Rashab says Chassidus is Ein Sof. If he came in Ein Sof, he came in nutzen die pratis dike biyurim. What's the kasha b'chlal? Every Inyan in Torah also has an Inyan prati. Shulchan Aruch also has an Inyan prati. Are you going to say is that what Shulchan Aruch is? No, it's miyuchad with Ein Sof. So, but even though it's miyuchad with Ein Sof, it's not a stira that someone's going to say that what's the function of this and this chelik in Torah to uftan kach v'kach. What's the the Rebbe says? Achin afshe kol chelkat Torah. This is not a davar pasha. The Rebbe says this. Achin afshe kol chelkat Torah. Kedasa ma'atz mesi ma sheim yuchad me'erin sof baruch hu. B'chol ze ikar nekuda zoom is bata b'teres Hachassidus. K'omer ba maimer b'negel l'Chassidus. If the Rebbe says b'negel l'Chassidus, shehi dafka am sharas Ein Sof shenin suberat lo. The Rebbe doesn't explain why. L'chore Torah is b'chal chachmasi ham yuchad is bein sof baruch hu. So what's the ufta of Chassidus? The Rebbe says like this. Ki kol chelkat Torah b'chnes Ein Sof shehem mislabish u be'ezet tzir. Tzir ha-magdir u-mevate gitares musa shechilek zeh. Says any Indian in Torah. So what's the Shchonarech Inyona is learning Chveis Hilchas Fir Seimer, the mechuven of those halachas are to teach you vitzu mekayim to the mitzvah of Fir Seimer. And what's the havan of the mitzvah of Fir Seimer? That is the levush. Someone's going to say, what's the yichus of learning Fir Seimer? Is that you understand the mitzvah of Fir Seimer. That's not the yichus. The yichus is that now Ein Sof is you're connected to Ein Sof, because the chachma, the levush is the Eibusha is Kaviyachim Mislabish to deal with the prati dinim of Sfir Seimer, or the prati dinim when you get the Shesh Nagach Sapara. But the yichus, the muhus is that there's Ein Sof mulubish in this muhus. Not that we know how to do kach v'kach. By learning these dinim, we're miyuchad with Ein Sof. But Lepoil and every Indian in Torah, Ein Sof is mislabish and connected himself to be melubish in that Indian prati umudar. And if you want to connect, if someone wants to connect to the Eibusher through learning Gemara, you say, I want to connect to Ein Sof. The way you connect to Ein Sof is by understanding well the Svar the Gemara says. The Gemara is saying a distinct Svar. You have to know what the Gemara is dealing with. We're dealing with a prati is the Gezach, and Ein Sof hat sich hereingelegt in dem Indian prati. So if you want to access and be misached with the Ein Sof within this halacha, with Ein Sof, you can't take Ein Sof. It's knowing the svara of Meischav Olav Harai. By knowing this svara, by knowing there's a Maitzi and a Mursik, and the svara, that's the way you connect with the Ein Sof, where's the Ein Sof invested? In this Indian prati. There is not going now beyond what's the Lomdas Shibazeh. Avada, the Inyonim in Torah that you're learning are levushim. The mohus is not that now you know the svara Meischav Olav Harai. Within the svara is Mulubash Ein Sof. But Ein Sof connected himself. That the way you connect him is through this svara. So he invested himself in this levush prati. That's when you get the chochel keter. So what's melubish in it, what's linked in them is Ein Sof. But Ein Sof invested himself in this levush of this and this din, whatever you're learning, with this and this nice and whatever a person's learning. That's when you get the chochel keter. So you say l'chur Hachassidus is the same thing. It says kol keter mechenes Sof shem mislabish beizet tzir. Tzir ha-magdir umevate gitares musa shechilik zeh. There's a tzir. Every chilik in Torah has a certain tzir which defines what's the nekuda of this chilik in Torah. There's pshat, remez, drush, seid, befen klali. Each chilik in Torah has a distinct hagdara what this chilik is, and each chilik has its klali alimut. Means it's a distinct Indian prati. The Ein Sof which is invested in this tzir is Ein Sof, but it's the Ein Sof the way he invested himself in a certain form, in a certain structure. And that in each chilik has a structure. There's klali halacha and klali agada. There's no connection, and each one has its own kolam prati. And agada has its function, and nigla has its function. And within nigla guf, but even klali is pshat to them is just. But each chilik in Torah has a tzir which tak expresses what the chilik in Torah is. Now, but then similubish in them Ein Sof, and this tzir is miyuchad with Ein Sof. But the tzir is not Ein Sof. The tzir is davar prati. In this tzir, there's invested Ein Sof, and the only way to connect to that Ein Sof is through this tzir. If you're learning pshat, if someone's going to learn pshat, he's going to start getting excited by the fact that the Ein Sof is melubash here. He's not connecting with the Ein Sof which is melubash in pshat. Someone's going to learn a Perek Tanya, and it says there that Torah is miyuchad with Ein Sof. And he's going to open up Rashi. He's not going to understand the Rashi, but he's going to start getting all beislavos that he's learning now. Oisi is that connecting to Ein Sof. He didn't become connected to Ein Sof, even though he got very nislai, but they didn't connect to Ein Sof. The Ein Sof is invested in understanding the pshat of this pasuk. And if you don't understand the pshat of this pasuk, you don't access the Ein Sof. The pshat of this pasuk is a davar prati. In them is mulubash Ein Sof. That's not chazach. So that's the first thing. The tzir zesh, and now the Rebbe adds another point. This tzir zesh shel chelik teira zeh, which pshat, remez, drush, seid, each chelik has its function. Mailim hu apshit Ein Sof hamulubash bei. Helim de levush kav yochel efshel achlife. He's mailim on the pshit Ein Sof. Ein Sof has no tzir. Ein Sof posh blachs apshitis. But even if you have a Yidden like us, that we can learn Torah, we're not margish that it's a levush. We learn in Tanya that it's a levush. But when we learn Torah, we're margish machlep harbachamer, we're margish the svar. You have a Yid that's margish that it's a levush to Ein Let's say Yid by him, Pshasa learned Pshat, he's margish that through learning this Inyan, he's miyuchad, there's Ein Sof which is malubish here. But since the Ein Sof is malubish in this tzir, and the tzir is negeya, the Eibush connected himself. He connected himself to this Inyan, and that Inyan is Inyan Prati, so it's Mailim on the Pshittas Ein Sof. The fact that the Eibush is beyond tzir cannot be nirgash begoli in other Chalkat Torah. Why? Because their Inyan is not to express the Eibush's Pshittas. Their Inyan is the way the Eibush's Ein Sof connected himself with the Davar Prati. So even someone which is going to sense the Ein Sof which exists in a Blat Gemara that he's learning. But the Pshittas Ein Sof, like dort nicht. Ba'amitis be'etzem Inyan. Because the Ein Sof hat reingestellt, was magbal, was you say, defined himself and invested himself in a specific Inyan. But there is like this. If someone, there was not going into what's the Havana of this whole Inyan that Ein Sof, that there says in Tanya, in Perek Daled, that the Eibush is Chach Man, Ratzin is Ein Sof. But the Eibush Oliver saying that she take Machshavat Tfisabem. So Mele, the Eibush invested his Ein Sof in small things, in Dvarim Prati. So it's not a joke. The Eibush connected himself to these small little things, but they should take Machshavat Tfisabem. So now the Ein Sof, the Pshittas of the Ein Sof is takenat is like dort nicht. It's the Ein Sof the way it limited himself, the way he connected himself to a certain small thing, to the they call machshavet tfisabem. So the Rebbe, and he's mugder in that. So l'chorei can say the same thing when you get to Chassidus. This is also the same thing. Every Maimer does. I'm saying Ein Sof, a Maimer speaking about also. You have to understand the Maimer. A Maimer speaking about also specific things. You're learning a Maimer, so you're not supposed to. The same way every chelik in Torah, there's a certain seer, and within this seer is mlubash Ein Sof. And the Rebbe is saying if the fact that Ein Sof is invested in a seer means that's mailam the pshittas Ein Sof. What's a Maimer Chassidus? Ein Sof, l'chorei Maimer Chassidus eichet is an Inyan of Prat. Whatever the Maimer is coming to explain, it's coming to explain Seder Shtalshel or a different Inyan. L'chorei it's also Inyan Prat. So the Rebbe says here, the Rebbe says here, Teres Hachassidus mikivan she'ena mugdares ve'ezet tzir. I'll say from the first side. The Rebbe is saying here that Hachassidus, Teres Hachassidus is not the way Ein Sof invested himself in a certain seer. Hachassidus says that a Yid should have a shaykhis to the Ein Sof, which is beyond seer, to the pshittas Ein Sof. L'poil, a person is davar mugbal. In order for a person to be misached with the pshittas Ein Sof, we have to use the language of biyurim ve'ezberim. But we're not asking to explain these biyurim ve'ezberim. That's what the Rebbe is saying here. So let's say you have a Maimer that it's very hard to see this in a Maimer because it's a little bit of a. The Rebbe is not saying that when you learn a Maimer, you're not supposed to understand what the Maimer is saying. But the Rebbe is saying, what's the Maimer Eiser? Is Maimer Eiser because someone's learning a Perek Tanya, that is Masber, the Nefesh Bahamas is built up. So you're going to say, oh, what's the Maimer discussing? A certain Inyan Prati, the build up of the Nefesh Bahamas. Whatever the Nefesh Bahamas is built up. So there's nicht eisen to be mevair what the Nefesh Bahamas is. That's not the Inyan. The Inyan is that a person should have a hergish and as Omer Zan Be'em, the Pshittas Elukus, the Ein Sof of the Eibusher, does also Chen Be'em. How is a person going to sense the Eibusher's Pshittas? So these Biyurim, but these Biyurim, we're not eisen these Biyurim. We're eisen that through understanding these Biyurim, the Pshittas Ein Sof will be Nirgash. We're not eisen to express these Biyurim. Let's see the Lashon the Rebbe says. This is nicht kein Davar Pasha, das steht da. Teres Hachassidus mikivan she'eina mugdares be'ezet tzir. It's like not mugdar. Somebody say, what's this Maimer going to speak about? So you say, you open up a Sefer Shulchan Aruch, and mitamol, man geht sich nicht verreden dort in Shulchan Aruch, when you know exactly, you can learn Hilchas Shlomo Sabeker, you're not going to find it with the halachas of how to kasher a pot. You can learn Hilchas Shlomo Sabeker. You know, if someone say, open a Maimer Chassidus, this are you going to learn how to deal with this and this midah the Nefesh Bahamas. It's not such a Maimer. You're going to find over there mitamol, sabir, and Eises Shemavaya, and this Inyan and that Inyan. So it's not that you're going to find this Rabbi discusses this, and it's punkt narrowed down to this and this topic, and here you have the. I'm saying, you open up a Maimer, there's things happening over there, besides for the specific narrow topic that you're looking for. So it says, Chassidus is not mugdar and atzir. V'atziyurim she'ina sheb'chassidus mizgal al yodem kalavush tachlifen v'yachleifu. It's not saying Pasha. The Rebbe is not saying that it's not a lavush. Avada, the Ein Sof is a lavush, not lavush. We're being mavar certain Inyonim. But the levush is not the inyan. And it's mizbaten them that you could change. The Rebbe says, Kalvush tachlifin v'yachleifu. If you change the levush, it's not going to affect the inyan. So that's a raya that the levush is just a chetimtze to be margish a malubush, which is beyond the levush.
When you marshal the guy getting in this Bible, if you are not...
No, you have to understand the levush. The Rebbe is saying something else. The Rebbe is saying, what is he getting from his father? He didn't understand the man, what's he being misqual from? There's a couple of points here, but I'm saying just the Taish, the Lashon, the Rebbe says here, I understand the Maimer Zakt. What the Rebbe is saying is that the inyan that's being expressed through the Maimer is not limited to those levushim. You'll change the levush, the inyan black is albi. Kalvush tachlivim v'yachleifu. Because the nekuda is not this levush. The nekuda is just a dogma ba'alma, not. It's not a good just to bring out this point, but al derech, like you're going to say, you have that someone is being masber a dvar seichel. So first of all, he says it in words. You can say different words. It's not going to change the idea. The idea is not invested in these words. They're using the words as an emtsai. You want to bring out a certain idea. You have to use different words. So you want to bring out a certain point. The point is not limited according to the words that you're using. The words are only an emtsai to bring out a certain point. So listen, languages. If the languages is gonna, if someone speaks something in French or speaks something in a different language, it changes the inyan. The language is not, the Inyan has nothing to do with, the language has nothing to do with the Inyan. The Inyan is the Gedank, which is not any language. You use languages as a chitzain is the kemtsai to bring out the Inyan. The Levushim Chassidus is not a chitzain is the kemtsai. What I'm saying with this Nekud, the Rebbe is saying is, the mohus what Chassidus wants to bring out is beyond the Levush Prati that Chassidus speaks about. Every Maimer is using different Levushim to bring out a Nekuda which is not limited to the tzir of the Levush. We want to connect each Rav Asag in Pshitas Ein Sof. You have no other way of connecting. The same way, how are you going to give over something kind of language? You have to choose a language, which language you're going to speak. But the Inyan is not limited to the language. That's just an emtsai. Al derech zeh, Chassidus is eisen as al zecheren, the Eibush is Pshitas. The Eibush is Ein Sof. Not the way the Ein Sof. The Rebbe is saying, all the Chelkat Torah is not, what's the Pshat? The Rebbe Rashab said, the Chassidus is Ein Sof shenimtze beradla. Pshimi is Ein Sof, and what's the whole Torah? But the whole Torah is taken not the Ein Sof the way he is Batzmosei. It's the way the Ein Sof connected himself, invested himself in a certain Inyan Prati. It's Ein Sof, but it's not the Ein Sof Kameshu Hu Batzmosei. It's the way it's mitzumtzen in a certain Inyan, mislabish in a certain Inyan. Mashiach Chassidus is the Ein Sof Kameshu. Ein Sof Kameshu who is not an Inyan Prati. What's all these levushim pratim? I mean, these are the levushim with which Ein Sof is expressed. The pshit is Ein Sof. And it's b'mele the levushim taka, they're not the Mahosa Inyan. Kalvush tachlin v'yachleifu. It's not so pashut, but I'm saying it's not that we could go to take away this levush, that levush, we can machen eigen levushim. Yeah, this is the Rebbeim doing. The Rebbe saying b'Mahosa Inyan, Chassidus is not mugder. Yes, nicht as a pashut. But just Stam as this would be able to say this dogma that when they get to that it says when they get to the man, for example, that Tom will be kol timing. So what's the pshat? You have a regular food, is a food or is bitter or is sweet, or it's smart or it's masik. Man, it could have been the same thing. If you wanted it to be mar, it was mar. If you wanted it to be masik, it was masik. Lepel, what did they taste when the guy wanted it to be mar? It was bitter. But is it the same bitter as when someone eats a hot food, hot pepper? It's not the same thing. A hot pepper is bitter. The man was nirgash in the man. We want to remind you about supper. I just want to bring out just to bring out the Nekudas Inyan. So this is a levush tachlin v'yachleifu. This is from the digmais muchashius. But the point is that when he was that a yid is taking a man, he said this food itself is can zayin other bitter, others is. So what does that bring out? The food doesn't have a distinct flavor. It was beyond flavor. Flavor is a double prati, and mar and masik is a stidim is get shazam. Man was lechem and hashamayim, was different type of bread b'chlal. A himeldik asert bread which didn't have the akbala of a certain flavor. But could we taste the mohus of man is not having akbala of a certain flavor? Could we taste that in gufa? Could a mention? Could you experience not being limited in a certain flavor? How are you going to taste that? That's what the man is. In order for us to access this not being limited in a certain flavor, how does it express itself? That any flavor you want, you're able to sense. The when you're sensing red, you're sensing bitter dirt, and you're sensing sweet. what's the mechuven? As a bitter, it's bitter. That expresses to you that this food doesn't have a distinct flavor. The only way for you to access that it doesn't have a distinct flavor, the only way for you to taste it is that you can taste any flavor. So the kalbush tachlimim v'achleifa, that's a dogma they have. If you say this thing is a bitter zach, so that's the taste, a bitter zach. Here, man wasn't bitter and it wasn't sweet. It wasn't sweet either. What was it? Not a defined flavor, b'chlal. Not being defined in flavor. How do you able to Lamer Zagan as the kavana is as also a person you didn't want to taste any flavor, but if you want, vivat chareis gebracht, the fact that this lechem is himmeldika lechem, which doesn't have a distinct flavor, that whatever he wants he can taste. So the payol, that's with what is expressed that this mohus is not limited in a certain taste, in the fact that you have anything there and it could switch. The same thing could be bitter, could be sweet. It says, Chassidus Inyona is not Torah the way Torah is connected to Prat. Torah is Pshittas Ein Sof. That's Chassidus brings out the Pshittas Ein Sof. That's what Chassidus came to that a person should have a hasaga in Pnimius Ein, in Pshittas Ein Sof. V'idas with these tziyurim. These tziyurim that are used in the Maimer and the lechatchila, the tziyurim in Maimer is not like tziyurim in Nigla. Different type of tziyurim. It's tziyurim that kalavush tachlifim. You see that the Inyan that you're learning is not mugder in this tziyur. It's not defined by this tziyur. So azah sort levush is ishmaelim of the levush. Like in the case of the man, azah flavor that you could switch it. Means the mohus is not limited in this flavor. That type of flavor is not mailim on the pshittas. If it's a flavor that you cannot, so you're going to taste bitter, not going to taste anything else. But a flavor that, if you want something else, midam want something else, so that tamar is not mailim on the pshittas of the maichel. Because it's nirgash that the Inyan is not limited in this time. If I state the Inyan. Yeah, that's not so pashut. So the Rebbe says here, I'm saying it's not so pashut for us to start using this in a regular manner that we learn. But this is what it says here. You have to remember, the Rebbe is not saying here that the levushim are not important. But the Inyan is beyond the tzir of what the Maimer is coming to explain.
And every other part there is halamamiti.
Yeah, that's what it says before.
Yeah, Mugder Dafka, you have to understand that.
Helamamita, no, you mean Helamamita doesn't mean that.
It isn't.
No, Helamamita and the Pshita saying so. Not the Helamamita and the Pshita saying so. The Rebbe says, "L'chein kilele si is called da the chalakim padash u'b'teira mechai yesum g'dalala." Yeah, that's nish is a pashut. It helps us a little bit to just when you don't understand the Maimers, so we can use this as a little. But that's nish is a pashut. I'm saying, but there's certain in Kiluna Maimer you say that's not this to be this darga. Let's say is not the point over here. So let's say someone learning about the Maimar wants to bring out the yichud of das elin and das tachten. So we want to bring out that the Eibusha is not mugbal. That's what we want to bring out. The Lepel, we explain teva, we explain nes, but it's nirgash. The Maimar is not able to explain teva itself. We're not able to explain how Eir and Eir works. No one's going to think what's the Alter brings of Eir. Never mentioned the Alter wants to push to explain to us how this phenomena that Eir and Eir chofetz. He wants to bring out the Ayitz Mr. Snavish the Eibusha. And that's a levush. I'm saying I'm not saying this is mechuvan to what the Rebbe is saying here, but in a certain point, the Rebbe is mevayir azach, and that's yeder tzir, as I say. Yeder Inyan is a emtzai of tzarez gam pshittas ein sof. Yeah, this nish is a pashut. Good. So this is all. So Hakapanim, what do we have from this? So the Rebbe is saying is, of course, every chelik in Torah is bepnimius mehusay is ein sof, but that's not a stira to say that it's not ein sof. Inyona is not the ein sof kfishu. Inyona of all other chelkat Torah is not in Seif. It's in Seif the way he invested himself in a certain topic. So yeah, every time we can explain what the Inyan is. The Inyan of Nigla is this Inyan. The Inyan of this is that Inyan. Every chelik in Torah has its Inyan. It's in Seif. It's in Seif. Wie es sich verbunden mit a gewisser Inyan. Mashek in Chassidus is not in Seif the way it connected himself, the way it invested in. It's in Seif kameshu hu ba'atzmusay. That's what Chassidus is. So does I'm verstehen, what is that? What's the Rebbe going to touch it up? That's an Eishes HaKabbalah Chassidus Samsharas Ein Sof Shenim Seberad La Samsharas Ein Sof, and that's the premium. But what does that mean? Was meint das? What does that mean? Wie kann man das abteichen? Man soll es verstehen, wegen was handelt sich. What does that mean? Benefesh Adam, and what is Chassidus coming to affect in a person? How to abteichen der Sach? Hashachas Ein Sof. What does that mean? So we got to know the Ein Sof. What's the point is we should know the Eibishter. What's handelt sich da? So that the Rebbe is going to explain. Soll sein verstandig. Walter Zeger.
9:20.
Should we start going weiter or the Elam wants to take a break? We have going weiter.
That's a good place to stop.
Good place to stop.
And you said that you could switch to Tziorim.
Yeah.
Is
I'm
that
saying the Inyan is not mugbal late tzir.
which
What I'm
is
there is
Inyan of
explaining-
Of insight.
The Chassidus. What I'm saying is you have man, let's use that dogma. You have man, you have regular food. This food is bitter. Gendik. It's a davar mar. This and this taste. The man didn't have a specific taste. But it's not only man that had a specific taste. The timing that a person was taming the man weren't milim on the pshitas of the man. Why wasn't the milim? Because it was nirgash that it's not mugdir in this time. It was a different type of bitter. There's bitter that this food is limited in this taste, or it has this taste because it's not limited. And the flavor was nirgash that it's not a flavor that's nevea from something which is limited in mar. It's a davar which is not mugdir in a tam prati. The levush wasn't, the tzir wasn't milim, the tam wasn't milim on the pshitas. Because the time is, because it's emet, you can be machlif it. It's not set on that flavor. It could be, so the fact that it's interchangeable, that's that the levushim are not milim on the pshitas. When the tzir is a tzir, which is a tzir hamagdir, a dasider inyan, so then, so the insaf in them, the insaf is behelim. But if the levush is, why is the levush not milim? Because it's nirgash in the levush that we're not acing this levush. The levush is just an emtsai in order to be margash insaf. It's nirgash in the levush, that the levush, and therefore you could change the levush. Say not when someone's learning the levush. The levushim which Hachassidus has gathered through them, it's as that sort levush which is not the defining purpose of the inyan. It's just it's not just, but it's a levush to be megala something which is beyond the tzir of this levush. Therefore, the levushim aren't seisr echad la'asheni.
Means that the
You can interchange the levush.
Insect that one member brings out is brought out the same thing.
No other
same,
member,
but
yeah.
not other member.
Yeah, but you're saying the insaf. The vart is that the levushim, the inyan which is expressed through the levushim are not. Let's say you learn a member about the nefesh bahamis. Let's say you'll be machlif the levush, but the inyan that you learn that was expressed in the levush is the same inyan. It's nirgash that the levushim are not. The inyan is not mitzumsim according to the levush. So if you're going to be machlif the levush, yachleifu, that means it's not going to change the gufa inyan, and the levushim is as it.
That's itself what brings out that it's.
So those levushim are not mailim. A levush was kind of chalaver. The Chassidus is saying a maimer. I don't know exactly, or Chassidus being mazber Indian. It's the levushim which the maimer is speaking about are not levushim which it's nirgash in them that the mahus is not that it's not that the inyan is to bring out this levush. There's an inyan which is lamailim which is nizgala through them, and that's nirgash in that levush. So azas sort levush is nishmayim. I was saying a levush which is a levush hamagdir, and the inyan is we're say you're being misakav in the levush. That levush is mailim. A levush which was interchangeable as a levush is nishmayim. I'm saying is al derech like a language is never a levush hamagdir. So why is language not mailim on the seichel? Because it's not that type of levush which captures the idea. It's not that type of levush. It's a levush just to convey an idea, not to capture it. But you have a certain levushim that they're not levushim, which just they're levushim which the inyan becomes limited according to their property. There, they capture the inyan. So azas sort levush which doesn't capture the inyan, azas sort levush is nishmalim of the inyan. The Rebbe is saying here that the Inyona of Chassidus, the levushim which the Maimer speaks about, are azal chesart levushim, which are not levushim which are magdir melubish. They're levushim which is nirgash in them, that it's interchangeable in Inyona. Not necessarily that we learn it to versteht this, but that's the Rebbe saying the levushim tzadats are not levushim magbidim. As you can have a Maimer and that's steht dort in Kabbalah. It says it's kalel says kol kal dal chalak and parda shibatera. How could Chassidus have parda shibatera? Because it's how could a man have different time? When if this food is bitter, so bitter or it's bitter or it's sweet. But if it's not bitter, bitter is just an expression of the fact that it's not limited in a certain flavor. Then the mar is not a stira to the masik. So it's not the same mar. B'chetzein is the same mar, but but that mar is an aveh from a davar bilti mugbar. I'm saying all the way it is in Chassidus itself, not when when a yid learns Chassidus. The Rebbe is saying it when you get to the tziyurim she'inin sheb'chassidus mizgal al yadim. The lashon and the Kuntres is meredek in the Inyan alein, that the levushim are not levushim which are magbal. The Rebbe is saying when someone's learning a maimer, so the inyanim pratim which are being discussed is not mailim on the pshitis ein sof that is nizgal through that inyan. There's a certain seichel in the maimer. The seichel la verstehen wir the maimer sagt, but that's not the inyan. The seichel is a levush is also the pshitis ein sof. Yeah, das darf man sich hereintrachten. Das ist nicht so poshte Sache. I'm saying it's not a simple inyan. It's not a simple inyan. Huh? I'm just saying that it doesn't mean that that's not what the Rebbe is saying. The Rebbe is saying that it's a different type of levush. Someone's going to say when they get to man, they say since the Indian is not mukbal in a flavor, so you shouldn't taste it. So you're not going to have a shaykhs to the whole Indian. This is the way you have a shaykhs to the hergish of man, is that you taste fashid in a certain time. And that's the way it's made by the person, the fact that it's a mohus which is not mugdar in a certain time. Gut, metach ma'am shel zayn. Ihr werdet sich hereintrachten in dem. Ja, das ist hereintrachten in dem.